Monday, July 22nd. Now been called to order of the Nashville Community Review Board. I will read the appeal of decisions from the Community Review Board. Pursuant to the provisions of 2.68.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, please take notice that decisions of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County Community Review Board may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under a common law writ. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the board. Any person or other entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure that time and procedural requirements are met. Mr. Secretary, do we have a quorum?
We do, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you so much. Our first item is the approval of minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
All right, a second? All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor of approval of the minutes, please say aye. Aye. All right, we have approved the minutes. All right, I am going to keep my chair remarks very brief. I will just speak on one of our most engaging meetings that we currently had a couple of Fridays ago, Director Fitchett and I. On Friday, July 12th, at 4:30, Director Fitchett and I met with Mayor Freddie O'Connell and his Chief of Staff, Marjorie Pomeroy Wallace. And we met with them regarding two issues. One was the status update on the MOU with MNPD, and the second was reduction of conflict between CRB and MNPD. Director Fitchett and I gave the mayor a detailed update on the status of the MOU agreement, stating that the MOU is still being discussed in the Metro Law Department, and there hasn't been any discussion between Assistant Chief Dwayne Green, Tommy Widener, or Mr. Hertenstein. At our executive committee meeting, which was last Wednesday, July 17th, it was shared with us by our attorney, Frank Brazil, that on August 6th, that will be a meeting between the CRB and Metro Legal. But that will still not be a MOU negotiation meeting with MNPD. Pertaining to the reduction of conflict between the CRB and MNPD, we were presented with a proposal for outside counsel. Board members should have that in your board packet. And I welcome a conversation regarding the 6 items that we were presented with by Mayor O'Connell. We told him and asked him for additional time to digest these items that were proposed to us and that we would take them back to the board. He agreed. And so we went on to discuss the issue of possible litigation pertaining to the law, in which the mayor asked for additional time to think about and process what that would look like. And we obliged. Now, I wanted to make sure that everyone understood what that meeting entailed, but also what we talked about and how we want to keep a transparent relationship with the community. So as we, over the next few weeks, talk about what this outside counsel proposal will look like and what it will entail, we would like to make sure this is a full conversation, because this will most definitely include community members who have not only ensured that the COB, now CRB, is in existence, but it continues to thrive and be shaped in a way that the community understands and can be proud of. And so we want to make sure that people understand that, but we also want to work to create the CRB and a community review board that empowers people. We want to be committed to the 135,000 voters who said oversight was needed in Nashville. We like to tout that we are committed to the democratic process. But what I would like for us to do is recommit to the democratic process and seek the moral high ground, because we understand that if our voices are taken on this matter, they can be taken on other matters. And so even though it may not pertain exactly to you, just know that our fight includes you, and we will continue to do that which I have proclaimed. So that concludes my chair remarks. And we will now move on to public comment. We have no public comment. All right, thank you. Now, next is our executive director's report.
All right, good afternoon. I'm suffering a little bit of, I think, laryngitis, so I'm going to have brief reports, and that's why I have this kind of heavy voice today. But I just, excuse me, I just wanted to introduce, I want to start on this report that I just gave you all. Some of this information the chair covered already. I did want to talk a little bit about our new employees. I'd like to introduce our new assistant director, which is Dr. Kimberly Risby, and she has been with the criminal justice system in Nashville for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And so I'm very pleased that she decided that she wanted to come work and do this work alongside all of us and the staff and the board. And so thank you, and we welcome you, and we look forward to working and getting some work done and resolved in this city. And then I want to tell you that we also hired a research analyst one, Travis Strachan, and he will start on Monday. And so we will have a full research staff at that point. And we have 2 compliance monitor positions available, and I'm assuming they'll be posted tomorrow morning. So if you know anyone who is interested in doing some compliance and investigation, whatever you want to call it, send them our way. And they will be posted for 10 days. So that'll be great. A couple of things that I have in front of you are some information regarding our complaints and the record situation. So we received 4 citizen complaints since our last board meeting in June. We also received a lot of calls this month. So about 60 calls, and that includes calls to me directly as well. And they were for a host of things. Sometimes people just wanted to talk about their issue. They didn't want to file a formal complaint. They were following up on complaints. I'm assuming that you received those emails. Some of you have received the emails that I've received, and those people have called as well to try to walk through some things. Although we weren't able to help them because their issues don't involve the Metro Nashville Police Department, we also try to make certain that they are listened to and they feel heard as well. That sometimes is all that they need, is to make, someone is answering the phone and taking their calls. So we spent a lot of time on the phone this month. We received about 7 dispositions from MMPD since our last board meeting. One of them was from a 2023 case that the CRB had worked on, so I received that earlier this week. And we also have compliance monitors who have finished reviews. Those reviews are complete, but because they don't have body-worn camera footage, I'm trying to decide whether or not we will still present those cases to you next month, because they are sitting for a while, and we'll go over that in a little while. So that's something that's up in the air. I am concerned about presenting a case to you that doesn't have it's not completed, because if the police department's OPA has made the determination of their findings based on body-worn camera footage and a host of other things, we want to be able to present to you a review with those same issues and the same, like we want to be able to determine whether or not when they use that body-worn camera footage to make their final decisions on how they were going to discipline an officer or not, I would like to be able to review that same body-worn camera footage and make my final decision as well when I'm presenting it to you. So I'm torn about that. Some of the administrative closed cases, we probably can go ahead and present those to you because they don't have, they're closed for a host of reasons. Some of it is that the complainant didn't follow through or decided to stop. It could be that a case went through mediation and it was successful. So there's a host of reasons why a case would be administratively closed. I still think and believe that those cases should be presented to you all so that you understand what was in the case and you can make the final decision on whether or not you wanted to go back for additional review. Okay? Excuse me. And so in the past week, we received 3 body-worn camera videos that were requested a few months ago. And if you look at the charts that I sent you, we can look at the records. Right now, the wait time for body-worn cameras is estimating between 4 and 6 months. So if you look at, let's just look at the case that says Miss Pillow at the top. It looks like this. That case, and I had them do these individually. The next time they'll be in one form, but we don't have access to generating reports currently in the old IA Pro system that we have. So we're working on getting a new one, and it will generate the reports for you, and they'll look a lot lovelier than this. But anyway, so if you look at the one that says Miss Pillow, if you look at line number 4. It says this case is still with OPA. It was sent over to OPA on 2/19. We have not received it back, and it has been with them for 154 days. You know, I have asked each one of the compliance monitors to ask for status updates, which they have refused to give us. And so we don't have any knowledge on where the case is and what the status of it is. So that's been a little problematic. The response that we received from the commander there, Commander Jason Starling, was that that should be worked out in the MOU negotiation. I mean, that's great, but at the same time, we need to know why these cases are taking that long, what's going on with the case. 154 days is a long time, especially when their SOPs state that they're supposed to finish a case within 45 days. But we also asked, not only did we ask about the case status update, I also asked for each compliance monitor to send something to the police department so that they would tell us when an officer was notified of the complaint. That is when the clock starts on the complaint and investigation process. And they refused to give us that information as well. So if you look through the compliance monitor Pillow's information, you will see she put the notes in there related to each case. And we'll make certain that you guys get that going forward as well, okay? So we've got a case that's been with them for 88 days, 67 days. So if it's 45 days, 35, 10 days, I mean, they have time to get that done. I also asked, I'm sorry, I forgot to say, I asked compliance monitors to ask the OPA to send us the extension letter when they requested an extension for the case to be continued longer than their required 45 days, and they refused to give us that as well. So I just wanted you to look over these cases. I wanted to make a correction to Daniel Yoon's case. Right when I left out, I had some new information. So if you look at that one and you look at number 2 on the one that has case, and by the way, you know, he is no longer with our department. He is transferred to the Metro Human Relations Commission as the director of compliance at that department. So if you look at number 2, we have received that body-worn camera footage. Number 5, we've received that body-worn camera footage. And number 6, we've received that body-worn camera footage. So those are the corrections on those. And everything else is accurate. So if you have any questions, I'll take those on that. But unless you want to wait till, you can go ahead, we can talk about those and I'll finish the report in a minute.
Thank you for the report. My question is, with the notification that ideally that we would get about when the officer was notified, what does that look like? Is that just an email saying that the officer was notified? How does that communication come?
That's a good question. We haven't had that communication. We sent over a list to them. My previous AD, I asked him to create this list. He created a list with all the cases, sent it over and asked, and it had every case listed. Could we get the notification, the date that each officer was notified? And that was never done. So we haven't worked through that. To me, it's very simple. If when you notify the officer, all you got to do is, type in the case number, and it should have a notification on whether the officer has been notified, the date, or whether the officer has not been notified. Maybe the officer's on leave or on military, duty or anything, or out of the office or FMLA, injured. I don't know. It's not a difficult process, but we don't have that worked out.
Thank you.
Member Holloway?
Well, if you can hear me, did we have a police shooting not too long ago? And if we did we receive the video footage of it? Did the OPA, have they received any information on it, made a decision on it, as you know of?
Right. Okay, I'd like to talk about that. I forgot to put that in my ED report. I have 3 things I forgot to put in here. But anyway, so the police shooting occurred, and on that day I received a call from Commander Carlos Lara as he was on his way to the hospital. So it was in the afternoon, and he told me that he was making notification to me that there had been a police shooting. I asked him if he could give me some information. He gave me the location. He told me he could not give me any information and that Don Aaron would be making the public report soon after the call, but he wanted to make certain that I received some kind of notification. I asked him, could he give me any details about the case, whether the person was, at the hospital, what was going on, what was involved, who was involved, was it just MMPD, was it anybody, any other police department involved, how many officers were involved. He would not give any of that information to me, and so that was it. So I received a call around midday. He said that he didn't know much, and he was headed to the hospital, and that he was just told to make notification. And so that's the only information I received. And the next thing, I got the information from the news. So that's as much as I know.
Mm-hmm. Member Goddard?
Just following up, this is a forward-looking question / suggestion, if you will. There were several officer-involved shooting fatalities that we still have jurisdiction over that occurred starting January 1, 2023. Mm-hmm. 2 of those, I tried to find online a couple of weeks ago, 2 of those at least, TBI has released its full report, and it's online at the DA's office. And I didn't read it because it might come before this board, but those are out there. Director Fisher, do we have any ability to, I think these have already been referred before the new board came into existence to OPA, we may need to re-refer. Is there an ability to get OPA's review of those and us be able to review and comment on that? If OPA doesn't look at it and it's just TBI's report, I think we can look at that and make comments. If they do a separate look, commenting on it, we could do that. But I'm sorry, that's a lot of words. Does the question make sense?
Yeah, so
Okay.
One of the things I'll tell you is usually on those officer-involved shootings that TBI was involved with, how it was in the past was that the TBI, their report, I would get that information so that we could review it for the use of force when I would go to those use of force hearings. And so we had that information. All of that information for those cases, we no longer have. It's all been, because once the bill came in, all of the records that we had was turned back into the police department. And so we would have to request that, and then it would be up to them to release it to us because we don't have an MOU agreement with TBI's information. So I don't know what that looks like, but I can ask.
Okay, well, if you agree, let's make sure we remember that in the MOU negotiations.
Okay.
And as we think it through, make sure it's clear, we want to look at those as well.
Okay.
I hope. That's one board member's opinion.
Member Goddard, did you say that the DA, did you say something about the DA having?
Yes, ma'am, I said on the DA's website are for two of these, the first two within our jurisdiction, the full TBI report, which goes on to hundreds of pages typically.
Yes.
I think it's got all the backup info. Director Fisher knows better than I. Those are posted PDF form on the DA's website. And Executive Director, others can pull that down, take a look. Until we get the full back from what OPA did with it, we're not in a position to
Right.
conduct a case or whatever. I appreciate that, but that much at least is out there.
So I asked that question because I know previously as the CLB, we had an MOU with not only MMPD, but also with the District Attorney's Office.
That's correct.
And so, given our parameters with this law, what could that potentially look like as we, even entertain the thought of having another MOU with our district attorney?
I'm glad you asked that. It sound like I'm not answering the question, but I'll get right to it. The meeting that Frank Brazil and I are going to have with Metro Legal, Director Dietz and Cindy Groves, is designed to address some legal issues, the answers to which are going to be critical and frame a lot of the MOU discussion. And the single biggest one of those to me is, are we entitled to only public records, we the staff, or are we entitled to all records and have to keep confidential those that aren't public records? And Frank and my position is the latter, that we're entitled to all of those. If that is the determination, we haven't been told no on that. It's going to be looked at, going to be discussed on the 6th of August. If the answer is we are allowed to get, the staff's allowed to get public records, and I'm sorry, non-public records, and has to maintain confidentiality, that puts us in exactly the same position we were when the DA agreed to the prior MOU. And that's what allowed us to get all the Rule 16 records, because he can grant release of those to everybody as public records. The DA can grant release just to individuals that have confidentiality obligations. He can do it one by one, or he can do it broadly. And what he did in the prior MOU with the DA, the three-party MOU, police, us, DA, was to say, you don't need to come to me each time. I, in advance, approve giving Rule 16 records to the Oversight Board, and then the Oversight Board agrees they'll maintain those confidentially as they're required to under law. So it would be the same question, the same ask, the same agreement. If the DA's changed his mind, if Metro's changed their mind and oppose it, we'll have to deal with that. But we should be in the exact same position we were before, and hopefully can get that in place and be able to operate with respect to records very much like we did as the COB. Sorry for all the words, but that's the full answer.
Okay. And so in reviewing the law, where would you point to regarding our belief that we should be able to receive an entire case file and, without this limitation? And do you think that it is warranted, Member Goddard, as the MOU chair, to kind of connect these two issues where, the belief that we can't receive the entire case file and it's intricately involved and connected to the MOU? So let me put that a little plainer. So do you believe, and I think this is what we've been talking about in the executive committee meeting for months now, that the MOU can be everything that we agree on, but as it stands right now, we believe the law states that we should be receiving an entire case file?
That's our position. I'd rather not get into details of those things. That's what's going to be discussed on the 6th, the whys under the statute. It's interpreting the statute, and I'll be the first to say there's not a sentence that absolutely positively clearly answers the question one way or the other, so it's interpreting what's there. I think that there are various things, that statute and what we did before in the MOU with the DA that all come together. It certainly is something that needs to be addressed in the MOU, and have a complete MOU, we have to have that addressed. If we reach agreement on that first, on that point, there is, to my mind, no reason that can't be implemented immediately. And if somebody needs that in writing, we can draft a short statement of that. I would hope if we all got on the same page, literally in this case, it wouldn't require a mini MOU or something like that.
Right. And so my concern, and the reason why I asked that question, is because we've been talking about this for many months now.
Right.
And how we believe as a board that we should be receiving an entire case file. So even though the MOU negotiations or the MOU discussions, because we haven't actually negotiated anything yet, it's taking quite a while, how expediently should we be receiving those case files? Because in looking at Compliance Monitor Pillow's records, and it looks like number 4, that case has been with OPA for 154 days. And then another one has been with OPA for 88 days. And so if we are, simply putting this against MNPD's own SOPs, and when they are to complete these cases, I'm wondering, what does that look like if we keep kind of kicking the can down the road? And that brings us further and further behind, and it continues to create a backlog. And so it reminds me, even though I wasn't on the board, it reminds me of when the board first started, right? And we began to have these discussions, and we were in a deep backlog. And so I'm trying not to be cynical and think positively, but it looks like we're going to be in the same position that we were when the COB first started. And so we don't want to do that. And so I want us to really think about the approach, and should we, everyone, be looking at any kind of remedies that we can provide, such as asking for cases to be reopened since they've sent it to us and stated that they're closed. Should we request that they be reopened, or we just name them or label them as insufficient because we don't have the files that we need to properly address the cases?
I would say this. I think OPA closes the case. They said they've done their full investigation. I don't know that we get anything about asking them to reopen that. We don't close our case until we're done. And my suggestion to Director Fisher for consideration would be those where we don't have the body-worn camera. If you want to give us an update, an interim report, something like that, I'd be wide open to that. I would very much think we don't close our case until we get all the records for that case, and continue to push for those. And
So-
in the MOU, the draft we sent over, it specifically requires that we get the whole case file. It defines that. Still an issue of what records we're entitled to, like I talked about.
Right.
And it's got language in there addressing body-worn camera and it being prioritized.
Right. So, but you do believe that that's addressed in the law as well, right?
I'm sorry, which part of that?
That we are supposed to receive the entire case file?
Yes.
Okay. And so does that mean that MNPD is breaking the law as it pertains to us not receiving the entire case file? That's what I'm trying to get to, a point and get to a consensus, because 154 days of not receiving requested information, and it has been with MNPD or OPA for that length of time, then what would be the remedy for us because we cannot review this accurately. And so that's why I was going with the idea of, it's a closed case, but we can't deem it, we can't review it because we don't have all the information.
I think there's a little apples and oranges here. There are two
Okay.
related issues.
Okay.
One is, has OPA finished its job? And we don't get any
I'm
records.
gonna look it
And
up.
we can't do anything until OPA finishes its job and sends us a notice that it's done and tells us what its resolution was. And Director Fisher, if I misstate anything or differ from your understanding, please
No,
speak
that's
up.
correct.
But
And
that is when we receive the,
Well, I think there's two issues.
okay,
Like,
Yep.
okay, so the first issue is the case is closed. They haven't determined what does closure look like for them? Is it closure,
Right.
right when the investigation is over, which is what I believe it is. I believe that the moment that the investigation is complete, that it is closed. They may think that closure is it go up the chain and, it's completely, done through the whole disciplinary process and, they went through whatever hearings and all of that. We haven't defined what closure looks like.
so we can't, say that it's closed because we've received that information back from MMPD?
Well, that's what
So
I'm
that's
saying.
not
When
the
we receive,
indication
when
that
we
it's
receive the
closed?
information back, it's closed, but I don't know if that is why it's taken 6 months, 4 months, because if you finish your case in 45 days, even if you had an extension for 60 days, I'm assuming that you have finished the investigative part.
Correct,
There's other parts that's built into what they might consider closure.
okay,
That may be, they go through a whole process of, an officer may appeal and all of these things. So I'm not really understanding, because that's not been defined, what closure looks like.
okay. And it doesn't state what closure looks like in the law.
No, and I think that it makes sense that we would get the case as soon as the investigation is complete.
here's,
And so are we saying that because we get a summary or something back from MMPD, do we assume that it's closed, or they're just
Whenever we
sending
get
us
something
information?
back, when we get something back, we assume it's closed.
yeah,
Okay,
I agree with that. I agree with that. I mean, your number 4, you talked about 154 days. That's a problem, I agree. But we can request records, they'll ignore them. We don't have a right to request any records until a case is closed and we get a summary or whatever we get from OPA.
So let me
But-
tell you how this looks. So
Okay.
when we get this information back, we get it from the chief's secretary. Someone in the chief's office sends over this information. Or, I'm sorry, not the chief's office, I meant OPA.
okay,
And they send that over to us. And then in order for us to request the records, we then have to, which this is just, doesn't make sense, but I'm just saying what we have to do. We then have to take our referral form that we made an original request to OPA. We sent this referral form over to OPA.
right,
We then have to take that form and then attach it to a records request.
okay,
All right, they already know which records, we know what cases. So then that goes to MMPD records. The MMPD will not release the records unless we have our original form that says the case is closed. So
Okay.
there's 1, 2, 3 hurdles to get the records. And usually, if you look at here, you see that we get the records, which are usually the basic records. We may end up asking for other things. I don't know exactly, if I'm investigating this case, I'd like to see what they utilized,
Correct.
what they reviewed. It may be other records that I want to see that they have not used in the case that they should have. Other than that, I think the case is deficient if they didn't look at 6 and 7 and 8, whatever forms I make up. But at this point, we ask for the records. When we ask for those records, we usually get the records, if you look, usually within 5 days, 5 to 7 days. Those are going to be your affidavits, incident reports, supplementals, CAT reports, maybe some 911 calls. But the body-worn camera footage is not going to be included. And for the majority of these cases, they have used body-worn camera footage to make their decisions. To, whether they're gonna, exonerate the officer, sustain an allegation, or counsel, or however they're gonna do it. And so without the body-worn camera footage, which then throws the case, months down the road. And a complainant is on the other end of that waiting to hear back about their case. And so OPA will say the case is closed. Here's our information. And so the complainant is like, well, I'm done. OPA finished it.
So what you're saying that a case that being closed, you need the facts to show what they should prove to make this case closed. Give me all the information and let me see that I can come up with the same conclusion. Then, if you're not allowing me the opportunity with the same information, then that's a problem. And somehow the mayor needs to put his hand and bless this and allow us to have a better relationship, the MOU, so we can look at the same thing that they're looking at and come out, see if we can come out with the same conclusion.
Walter, that's the position, sorry, Member Holloway, that's the position we've taken all along. Whatever they looked at is the case file, whether it's a piece of paper, some report that was downloaded, a video, audio that's available, a 911 call, whatever they looked at is the case file. That may or may not be all we want to look at, but we at least get that much to start.
Correct.
Member Witzel.
So the barriers that Director Fisher talked about, those are things that can be maybe eliminated in the conversations, in MOU conversations, correct?
I'm sorry, maybe eliminated?
There's a,
Or resolved.
or resolve the process.
Resolved, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, those extra steps that they're
Clearly,
requesting.
that should be simplified. My suggestion is, in the MOU now, I think it's going to be, whatever you want to send us on the front end as a notice of closed case, send us the case file at the same time. It all should be digital. And if there's something that's huge, like a body worn camera, you've got to access and download, give us the link.
That is exactly what our position is. And I contend that we don't need an MOU negotiation to receive that.
Absolutely.
Right? And so if that is the case, and we have brought this up time and time again, we've been talking about it for months now, what would be a course of action that we would be able to take since it has not been enforced by our entities within Metro government that has the ability to enforce them. And so I'm wondering, what does that look like if one institution or agency is not complying with the law? Then how do we properly respond? Do we continue to complain about us not receiving the supplemental information and what we requested? And it's been, we received the case on 3/27 and the body worn camera was extended to July 31st. Or we received it on 6/12 and the body worn camera footage was extended to August the 12th. And we received the case back on 3/20, and the body worn camera footage has not been received, and it will be available in August. And so what kind of harm? Number one, we know what the harm is that's happening to us, but what would be our recourse? Because the MOU negotiations could take, 2 or 3 more months.
Here's how I would respond to that. Frank and I agree that we should get these records. The police department feels otherwise going into this conversation. The meeting with the head of the law department, who has an open mind about this, I can assure you. I've known the man for 40-something years, and next time he lies to me the first time. I feel confident he's got an open mind about this.
Okay.
If we can resolve it on August 6th, it's done, and then everything you're talking about going forward and happen quickly, that can happen. Until then, I don't know what recourse we've got other than politically whatever else about a thing, we've got a meeting set down to try to resolve it. I don't know why we would. I appreciate every day is another day, but I don't know why we wouldn't wait to state it differently. I very much believe our best path forward is to wait till August 6th, see what we can resolve in that negotiation. If we come out of there beaten down and don't get anything, then we need to jump to look at whatever else we can immediately. If we get at the other extreme what we need on this, we ought to very quickly be able to push to have those things start to happen immediately and not wait on an MOU to be resolved.
So I'd like to add something here. I mean, I know that they, how the law is written and how the police department is interpreting this and how Metro Legal or their legal advisor is supporting that position. My concern here is, when someone makes a public records request, for instance, the media, or they make a FOIA request, are they actually waiting 6 months to get this information? Or I thought the law, the open records law, protected them from that long waiting and those denials. And so, I mean, you're probably well versed on public records, more so than me. But I think that some of this is much longer than an outside entity asking for these records.
I will certainly address that, and I will try to get some facts on that. My understanding is that regular citizen requests such as that, we're just in line with them. That's what I've been told. I haven't gone over and tried to check the records or whatever else. I think when something is of significant public interest and the press is asking those to get accelerated. But our position is we've got a statutory right to these. And the statute, I believe, says we are to promptly review anything we get back. And my argument, and Frank's argument, is going to be we can't do promptly if we can't get the records promptly. And that, first of all, I don't think it's a public records request. I think it's a request for the records we're due under the statute.
Right.
And from that should flow, in my opinion, but lawyers could disagree, in my opinion, should flow us going to the head of the line or darn close on redactions and processing and delivery of videos.
Okay. I'd like to know, and this is a specific question to Member Witzel, Member Holloway. We know where you stand, Member Goddard, Member Nguyen. How do we feel about waiting till August 6th to discuss this? And are we confident that we will come to a resolution? Or do we begin to explore other avenues regarding obtaining entire case files? Because, I mean, we've been waiting for quite a while. This has been our stance for many months now, and we are now heading into the month of August. We've had our attorney our MOU attorney for quite some time now, and we've also drafted the MOU. I would like to know how you all feel about this. And if you all believe that the August 6th meeting will net us some positive feedback and reaction to what we know to be against the law. Don't everybody speak at the same time.
Well, August the 6th is just around the corner,
It is.
and it won't be long, and we can deal with it,
Okay.
make preparation to deal with it then.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like we got to wait 6 or 7 more months. We've already gone this length of time.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, after this week, August 6th will be here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can deal with it then, I believe.
Okay. Remember when?
Yeah, I agree with Member Holloway. I mean, the train's moving. Don't stop it now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd really wait till August the 6th to see what we get.
Okay. Member Whittle?
I agree. My question is, when is the next executive committee meeting after August 6th?
It's in the director's report. I think it's.
When is it?
August the 22nd, maybe? Look on the, do I have it on there? Oh,
These are,
wait, let me see.
I don't know.
the 21st.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I would agree with my colleagues here with August 6th being so close, but I do think that if we don't hear what we want to hear come out of that meeting, that we be prepared at the executive committee meeting to talk about what those next steps are and what we want to do. Yeah.
Okay. So we do agree that August 6th is appropriate to allow our MOU representatives to speak on behalf of this issue. And I think it is absent, in my opinion, it's absent from the MOU, but it can be discussed in conversation with it. And so if there's not a resolution from that August 6th meeting, we will then explore other options. Does that make sense? Can we agree to that?
Sounds great.
Okay, all right. Okay, now, we've talked about that. Director Fitchard?
I was looking at it, okay, so, a couple things. So our board retreat is scheduled. Everyone knows the date is August the 17th. It's on a Saturday. We've we've got a couple people lined up. The chair had mentioned that she wanted to talk about where we've come from. How was it? Where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. So that's the theme. And so I'm looking forward to that. We've got some exciting and dynamic speakers. And so we're still working on a couple more things, and then we'll have it all set. So I hope that you all can make it. It is at the Scarrett Bennett Center, and it is for pretty much the whole day, right? And so it's going to be a lot of really good training information that, as our attorney, Ms. Eke said, we won't be discussing any board business. We'll be doing training, basically. And so that, make sure your calendars are marked for that. And then for those who weren't at the executive committee meeting, I sent you all an email with the resignation of Member Beard. And so she has vacated her position, and so we still need to figure out whether or not we are going to ask the mayor to fill that position with an interim board member, or whether or not we're going to wait until October. But like I said, even if you roll out, it's the end of October, November and December comes, it seems like it might be a longer time. So I think having an interim as quickly as possible would be helpful to our board membership. And so I am going to make the call to the city clerk who handles this stuff so that they know. And we've already made notification to the mayor and Marjorie, that Ms. Beard has vacated. So that's it. And then I don't have much more than that to add, except for our office space is moving along really wonderfully, and that they're hoping that it would be finished by the 15th of August. And so I would say that our move is sometime in August. I'm not really sure the dates, but yeah, they have been working diligently. I got an email today about going in and setting up the infrastructure for us to have wireless and all that. So, I mean, it's exciting. They've done some work to it. It looks really great too, by the way. And so that concludes my director's report. So if you have any other questions, I'll take them now.
Member Witzel?
This is not necessarily related to the report, but I noticed that Commander Laura is not here. Do we know about why he's absent?
Yeah, so
Okay.
he sent an email a few hours ago and said that he's on vacation. He did say that they didn't have anyone to fill his position. He couldn't send anyone else, and so he would be back next month, so.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Member Holloway?
I know we got a position to fill, but October you will have another position up to be filled, or a person being rolling off to have to reapply. Now, what do you do? Do you leave that open, or do you let them know in ahead that we do have one rolling off, and they may reapply, but you still, even though he could reapply, but you still need to put that position out there, if I'm correct or not.
Yeah, I think you are. That's why I want to go ahead and let the city clerk, who handles like board notifications, vacancy notifications, I'm gonna make that notification tomorrow. And then I guess it would be up to the mayor's office and administration to determine whether or not they want to leave the position open for Ms. Beard, or whether or not they want to give us, maybe they have somebody who's interested. I don't even know what that process looks like. The last time that we vacated, when I think about the last time that we had some vacated positions, we had to go through the whole process of the whole nomination process.
Okay.
You know, the mayor administration chose a person. They made their choice, and then we went through. It still had to go before council and go through that process.
Okay. Well, I
Because
do.
it's council who approves the nominations.
Right, and so I think it would be good for us to contact Ms. Bugs,
Yeah.
you know, initially, so she can give us information on what that process will look like. And so hopefully we can gain some information from her. I do believe, in my opinion, that it would benefit us to have an interim board member, just because of the sheer amount of work that we have in front of us regarding the MOU and the law and what, you know, what the CRB will look like. And so we really do need all hands on deck. I know we're kind of working everybody to the bone. Sorry, Holloway.
Remember
I'm
when?
sorry. Yes.
We work him too. I know he's on the quiet side over there, but
Remember when we need your opinion on so much? And so if we could bring someone else in, I think that would really benefit us tremendously. And so I think, are we okay with exploring that option for an interim? We feel good about that?
and I'll contact, and Ms. Bugs is the Director of Community and Neighborhoods, I believe.
No, she
Oh, what's her-
is
what's her-
over boards and
Commissions?
commissions, nominations, and
Oh,
yes. So she'll be able to give us some insight.
okay, perfect.
Okay. And Dr. Risby,
Yes.
welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. Would you like anything, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Sure. Well, first of all, good afternoon to everyone. I wanted to say that I am so excited to be here, to join the CRB, and most importantly, to support and assist our fearless leader here, Director Fitchard. So I am excited to be here. As she stated, I have been around Metro for quite some time, 27 and a half years to be exact. I started when I was 10.
Of course.
Everyone nods. Yes, but just excited to be here and to support this team in any way I can. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, thank you. And we are excited to have you. You have a lot of institutional knowledge when it comes to Metro. And so for those of us, Wynn has worked for Metro, Holloway has worked for Metro. So we have some veterans on here. Jill, and so I guess you'll fit right in. So thank you. And then we're excited to have Travis come on. And I'd like to remind us that we do have 2 compliance monitor positions open. And if we know anyone who would be a good fit for these positions, please have them to contact Director Fitchard, and then she will, tell them what they need to do as far as the process of applying for the position. But we are looking for some good people who know how to review police misconduct cases. And I'm not going to say investigative skills, so I'm trying to stray away from that word. But really, we would like some experience on the team, because I think we have a dynamic year ahead of us as we continue to shape the Community Review Board. So as we are rebuilding what was essentially designed to tear us down, I think, having the right people on board would benefit us greatly. So if there's nothing else, do we accept the director's report?
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? All right, we have a director's report. We'll now move on to our board discussion and the sexual misconduct policy report.
Hello, everyone.
Dylan,
there-
is that a beard?
It's a mustache.
Oh, it's a mustache. Oh my gosh. I didn't recognize you. Go ahead.
Fun fact about me, I can change my appearance very fast and very often.
Me too.
So, yeah. I hope you like it, though.
It's cute.
But yeah, just some very quick updates on the sexual misconduct report. We sent you all, an updated draft on Friday. So we've already gotten some feedback from people, so we appreciate that very much. And we're asking for those who haven't yet, if it's possible, getting us that feedback by Friday. That would be great so that we can go ahead and incorporate those changes, because exciting news, and I'll switch it over to Ansley.
Hello, everybody. Our public forum is regarding the sexual misconduct policy report is exactly 2 weeks from today on August 5th at the East Park Community Center from 5 to 7. We have the space from 4 to 8, but the intended time is 5 to 7. So if everybody can get feedback to us by the end of the week, then we will have plenty of time to incorporate that feedback into the next version of the draft, which will also give us more time to work with for incorporating feedback from the public. Yeah.
Can you give me the dates on the public forum?
Yes, it is Monday, August 5th.
Oh, good. Yeah, thank you. And where?
At the East Park Community Center.
The what center?
The East Park?
Oh, East Park.
Yes.
And I will say that Member Brown sent in some comments, so he's not here today. He called and said he was ill, but he did send in some comments that were really helpful as well.
Member Brown did say he would be watching the meeting, and so I'm sure he is. I'd like to know, just give us a brief synopsis of what's in the policy, how you got to this policy. I noticed that it was 31 pages, and like the end of it was pretty much the appendix, and that you had cited in Violence Against Women International, the International Chiefs of Police, these best practice policies. So can you give us a brief synopsis of what we have in front of us and what the public can expect, and who should be showing up on August 5th?
Yeah, absolutely. So a very, very brief overview of this policy report. So it's a sexual misconduct policy report, specifically a zero tolerance one, that we're hoping MNPD will adopt. The catalyst for this report was we saw a through line through various complaints that the NCRB has received, and some situations that have happened in Nashville regarding police sexual misconduct, and decided that it would be a good idea for MNPD to adopt a full zero tolerance sexual misconduct policy. As of now, they pretty much just have a discrimination and harassment section of their handbook. And while that is certainly a step in the right direction, based on the former mayor of Nashville, Mayor Cooper's 2020 policing report, which stipulated that it would be beneficial for MNPD to have a standalone zero-tolerance sexual misconduct to meet best practice standards of the nation. We want to help move MNPD in that direction. So that's a very, very, very bird's eye view of why we're writing this report. And then in terms of the content of the report, it starts with a brief introduction on what police sexual misconduct is, why it's important for Nashville and MNPD, some of the complaints we've received, what this looks like on a national level.
Okay.
And then from there, we go into actual step-by-step policy recommendations that we hope MNPD adopt. And those will go into greater detail on the public forum, but they cover the whole gauntlet of retaliation, prevention, mandatory reporting, what behaviors are prohibited, what generally investigations should look like for police sexual misconduct, what additional trainings could be beneficial. Yeah, so we'll go again in greater detail on Monday, August 5th. But yeah, that's a very bird's eye view. And then I don't know if Ansley would like to add anything.
Yeah, that was great. But also just to touch on the In Violence Against Women international piece, that's one of, we pull a lot of the policy suggestions from the In Violence Against Women International policy recommendations that they've put out a couple of years ago, as well as incorporating, for instance, the International Association of Chiefs of Police policy recommendations that they put out regarding police sexual misconduct and sexual harassment. And as well as, for instance, taking inspiration for things like specific prohibitions from the Chicago Police Department, which very publicly had an issue with police sexual misconduct and put out their own standalone policy for public feedback and things like that. And so, yeah, so touching on with, we already have kind of looked at national best standards from organizations like In Violence Against Women International, but with the public forum, we also want community feedback to make sure that, for instance, the recommendations that we make in the report for resources for people who are victims of sexual harassment or sexual misconduct, that we're making accurate recommendations for what they can find within the community and things like that. But we also always want to hear the opinions of the public and give them the opportunity to share that. And so, yeah, I guess that's also part of the intention of the public forum.
Who have we invited to the public forum on Monday, August 5th?
Yeah, so some of the names we're reaching out to are like the Mary Parrish Center, the Nashville Sexual Assault Center, Thistle Farms, the Metro Human Resources Commission, the Office of Family Safety Center, Turk, Conexión Americas. So, yeah, hopefully we have some great turnout.
Okay, good. Good. Member Nguyen, could you lend us your expertise regarding this draft policy and, where we are currently nationally as it pertains to sexual misconduct, zero tolerance, specific policies, who's doing it across the country, and why is it so important for MNPD to have this now?
Yeah, that's a lot. Let me tell you, I think you're all going to be proud of the final product proposal. It's clear, it's concise, it's legal, it's factual, and I think if you just stood back and looked at the proposal as it is now, there's still some editing, a little editing to do. It looks like the framework of every other proposal this board will forward to the police department on all other issues, I think. Because this is such a big ask, because what the proposal is not just about adopting a policy. It's really about addressing male privilege. This is, when you take away somebody's privilege, then that's when you see resistance. And this has been a privilege that's been going on in American policing since American policing was started. So this is a big moment of truth. And I think the power of the report is important because if there's going to be resistance, they're going to have to take this report and explain why that they're resistant to it. Other than we've already said we have zero tolerance. To say you have zero tolerance doesn't mean you have zero tolerance. There has to be teeth in zero tolerance. It's like somebody saying, I'm not a racist. Well, show me how you're an anti-racist. What do you do each day to prove to me that you're not a racist and how you fight racism? So it's true with this. Show me how you fight male privilege, and each day you do that, because one of the things in the report, which I think is critical for the health of the police department, is their involvement in 30 by 30, which is the movement nationwide to bring up the numbers of 30% women in policing, which the Canadians and Australians have already passed. We're at 12 to 15%, somewhere in that range. And if we want to diversify the police department and be attractive, and this is what this board is about in my mind, to help the police department raise their standard, is to show young women who are looking at careers in law enforcement that if they come to Nashville, that they're not going to be sexually harassed and sexually assaulted. And that's true for men as well, not just women. So I think at the end of the day, we're going to have a really, really good report. Now, nationally, I don't know of any other department, and it's been a while since I've done any work with Memphis Police, but I don't know that any other agency in the state has a policy like this. The Ending Violence Against Women International policy is fairly new. As a matter of fact, one of the writers of it, Chief Tremblay from Vermont, is a compliance monitor for the Civil Rights Division on the Chicago review. So he's been working, after we left that review a couple of years ago in 2017, he went back as a compliance monitor. So he's been working with them, and they don't call it COPA anymore, it's their oversight board. And they've finished their negotiations. They've put their policy in play now. But I don't think there's another department in Tennessee, at least, that has an equivalent policy on sexual misconduct. So that'll be a first. And I think it's appropriate for Nashville to lead the way and say, we're completely transparent and we're going to, deal with the concerns of women who want to be police officers here, and or how our officers treat women civilians is another part of it as well. So I think you're going to be really, really proud of this report. I can only imagine that if this works and the police department says, yeah, we agree, it looks good, we'll do it, we're going to put it in place, then it puts pressure on other police departments in Tennessee and other states to say, if, this hillbilly town of Nashville can do this, then we can too. I think it would be appropriate for us to present this to NACO to say, if you're looking to influence your agency, and all of you are if you're a member of NACO, here's an avenue that you can offer your police department to increase its standards on this, because it's pretty clear that when you've got officers who are sexually abusive to their own members in the public, then there's other things going on there with use of force. I mean, that's one of the things that triggered the Chicago review after Laquan McDonald was killed. When the Justice Department looked at that case, which was a murder, complete homicide, Laquan McDonald, they also found serious problems with sexual misconduct inside their police departments. So that was a reason that Chicago added sexual misconduct and how their officers dealt with women to their civil rights investigation. And that's been true with Baltimore and Philadelphia and New Orleans, Puerto Rico, Steubenville, Louisville just did their report, Phoenix, all these cities where there's been a patterns in practice. When you look at use of force, excessive use of force, you also see tolerance of sexual misconduct or bias, gender bias inside the police department. So this has got connective tissue to a lot of different things in police behavior. So I'm excited that this is happening for the police department, and the report's going to be a strong first step. And I think it's going to be hard to look at this and say, we disagree with what you're proposing.
Thank you. It sounds like everyone's on the same page that this is a big moment. It's a big moment, not just for the Community Review Board and our great research staff, but it's a big moment for the city of Nashville. It sounds like this will move MNPD forward by leaps and bounds. I was thinking about the 30 by 30 initiative as well. Remember when that aims to advance women in the police force by 30% by 2030. And so if we really think about it, 2030 will be here in no time. And so what have we set up or prepared for and designed to have 30% of our force be women? And they feel protected and they feel safe in a male-dominated field. And so I think this is a pretty important report that should garner the attention that it deserves. And hopefully, MNPD will look at this policy and want to adopt it, as Member Nguyen has so eloquently stated. So I appreciate your feedback. I appreciate your expertise. Member Witzel.
Yeah, my question is around, first of all, great job, as always. It's kind of backing on the question that our chair had about who was invited. Is there any effort being made to ensure that kind of the average person who may not be a leader with these entities or may not be someone who's connected to these organizations that we've invited, like the word gets out to them, just kind of the regular everyday community member?
So now that we have Kevin, our media expert, he has been, he created, for instance, I think a post today about the event. And I think he's been posting it on, or he plans on posting it across our socials to make sure that the word gets out there as much as we can. Thankfully, like we have somebody in that role now who can kind of like spread the word as much as people on the internet are noticing what we're doing. And so, as far as things I know have already started happening and intentions that we are trying to make sure that the public knows about the event, yeah.
And
Thank you.
If I can add here, like we're going to also ask that some of the people that we invite, that they would repost it for us, like Silent No Longer. You remember when Miss McLean came to talk about her wanting to do some work alongside of us with this. And so hopefully she and some of the people and constituents would repost it as well.
And I want to encourage fellow board members to do that as well, share the information, bring people into the meeting.
Member Holloway?
I see what you're saying about this report, but we keep saying recruiting women to the fore, but it's about a victim, period, whether male or female. And that should be understood, because men go through some similar avenues as women do. And what good is a law if you don't enforce it? You got to have zero tolerance. You know, you can write the best law in the world about the best writer in this country, but if you don't enforce it, what good is it? And the department needs to know you come out cheaper this way as opposed to getting caught on the tail end of it and causing you millions of dollars. I looked at a guy just a couple of days ago. His department just settled a $500,000 lawsuit because of that. You know, so if you get ahead of the ball game, you can win.
And just to add, I just wanted to say that although this says MNPD Zero Tolerance Sexual Misconduct Policy Proposal, it's not just an internal document. It also protects victims who are not employees. They may call. It makes suggestions on how, and recommendations on how the police handle, investigations in general, but also their contact with people who are calling for services and help I think that one of the things that we noticed, if you read in the introduction, we didn't get deep into like the national issue with sexual misconduct, but we have to approach these victims with a trauma-informed lens, so that when they are being cared for, that we are not being, dismissive or whatever words you want to use, but that they are taken care of. Like, not like we want, like, that's our reputation in Nashville, that we take care of people.
Setting a high standard through a trauma-informed lens. Member Nguyen?
Yeah, and this is kind of unrelated, but it's not. Last month, we lost Edith Langster, who passed away.
Yes.
And this was a trailblazing woman in Nashville. She, the Fisk graduate, was brought on the Metro Police Department in '74, and she was the first female hire, first black female hire, to be allowed to work in a patrol car. And she passed away. I think she later got in local government.
That's right.
And a lot of us knew her. But I wanted to mention that in the spirit of this policy to enhance and promote women in policing, we should celebrate Edith's sacrifice and commitment to Nashville.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that to our remembrance. I'll share a little story. I received a personal letter from Edith Taylor Langster when I was in elementary school because of my exceptional abilities as a student in MNPS. So I just wanted to share that with everyone.
Quick little flex.
No, but seriously, thank you, Member Nguyen. That is exactly right. Thank you for bringing that to our remembrance. Any additional comments or questions? Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you
Ellen
all.
and
Just a
Anthony?
reminder, August 5th, Monday, 5 to 7 p.m.
Yes.
Thank you.
And it sounds like Kevin has been roped in to put out the word. It was, yes. Thank you. All right, thanks. Next on the agenda is the investigation status of the 61-page complaint. I know we gave an update, but I think that was at our executive committee meeting. Director Fitchard, who will probably be a doctor one day, could you give us an update?
Yeah, sure. So we met, myself and the chair, we met with the three investigators of Butler Snow. That is Ed Stanton, Keenan Carter, and Larry Ching. And we met with them at Butler Snow to just kind of check in and see where they were with the investigation. And of course, they're pretty tight-lipped about the investigation. But they wanted to hear, our concerns. They made themselves available. It was on the 3rd of July in the afternoon. They were here in the city because they were working on the investigation.
That's right.
And so I believe that they have started interviewing people, and, they're taking it very seriously. They didn't want to give us too much information. I mean, we asked a lot of questions. I'm just going to be honest with you, but we got very little answers. But I think I felt reassured that they were taking our concerns very seriously, that they were taking the concerns of the community very seriously, that they made it clear that they were doing a impartial review of the allegations. We asked them about the additional complaint that went directly to them, that they asked us to send directly to them, and how that looked. And, we talked a little bit about that. I think that's going to be the next thing on the agenda. And so it went, I think it went exceptionally well. I think that they're highly competent gentlemen and well-versed in investigations. We talked a little bit about their previous investigation into the death penalties and the lethal injection, what that looked like and how long that took. That report is online.
It is.
So I think that there was some talk about they hadn't released a report, but it's online. They showed it to us. And so I felt like that we're going to have to give them time. They wouldn't give us a timeline. I mean, I was being a little facetious when I asked for it, but I believe that they're working diligently to get it complete as quickly as they can. I mean, they have lots of witnesses to interview, so I'm assuming coordinating with them is good, is probably, it takes time to do that. So that's as much as I know in that regard. I felt like it went really well, though.
I agree. They have agreed to meet with us periodically just to get an update on how the investigation is going. So, of course, they have not shared any information about who they're talking to, any specifics. But one of my questions to the team was, are they having any issues obtaining documents or scheduling interviews? I mean, has there any issue come up? And they did say they have not had any problems contacting MNPD staff, receiving documentation or scheduling any meetings. So that was very, very good. I wanted to know that specifically. As Director Fisher said, they did discuss, Mr. Stanton did discuss, the death penalty investigation and gave us a little insight in how that worked and the level of independence that investigation they had in that investigation, and it was an independent investigation. And so as we look through the lens of the death penalty investigation, that it was supposed to reassure us that this investigation would be just as independent. And so we just wanted to make sure that the things we had discussed when we initially met was still happening. It sounds like they are conducting a thorough and efficient investigation. And, I think no one should be surprised if they are reached out to provide statements or be interviewed as it pertains to the allegations that are specific to the Community Review Board, which was formerly the Community Oversight Board. And so I just want to make sure that we are very clear that since we are named in the investigation and in the complaint, that we may be reached out to be interviewed or called as a witness. And so, just so you know, that is a possibility. Mr. Holloway?
No, I'm kind of like repeating what I said at the board meeting. During the investigation, started at the top, start where who spearheaded the law, and that person that spearheaded the law, who donated to his campaign. Well, the FOP donated to his campaign. I didn't say that before, but maybe somebody from the police department. In reading the law, how would they know how we operate to word this law according to the way it was presented? Steve Wonder could determine that he got inside information from the police department. Everybody, if y'all don't know, Steve is blind. He can see this. So my thing is, I hope they do go to the legislators and see if they can talk. And legislators normally kind of close lip, really.
That's right.
And they don't care if they're wrong. You can prove to them that they're wrong, they're still going to stick together.
That's true.
And so I hope they do make an effort to go that direction, because they the one who wrote the law. And how did they get the information? It's not like they're not police officers, so it just seemed like the wording was done from someone that got police experience.
Thank you for that. So I really did want to make sure that everyone, that this process from our perspective is transparent, that the community is informed and involved as it pertains to what we know regarding the investigation. Any other comments? So we will roll right into the next item, which is the expansion of the investigation status. And so what we did glean from this meeting with Ed Stanton, Keenan Carter, and Larry Ching was that, and we had the first meeting as well, is that they only have jurisdiction over this 61-page complaint. And we have received another complaint from an officer that was handed over to the third-party investigators, independent investigators at Butler Snow. And they did state that if any of the allegations overlap, then they would be able to review or investigate those allegations. But as it stands, they only have jurisdiction over that 61-page complaint. Now, Director Fitcher can speak to the number of calls she's received or information pertaining to issues of misconduct inside the MNPD. And I think we have on here, in our packet was the whistleblower information and how we look at and frame and proactively handle issues that are whistleblower complaints, but also as it pertains to the 61-page complaint. Do we believe that an expansion is needed given the additional complaints that we've received? And they could be phone calls or, emails, and what does that look like while we have this active investigation going? So just say next year we have another incident where we receive a complaint similar to, a number of alleged allegations of misconduct. What do we do then? Are we employing for a third-party investigator? Should we have a process? What does that look like now? And I really would like the feedback from you all pertaining to that. Because my concern is that with the abolishment of the COB and the altering of the oversight that we provided, that it also affected MNPD employees, sworn and unsworn, and they are now concerned that there isn't any kind of robust external oversight. And so what does that mean for them? Because that's what it's, the complaints are coming in because they may feel, and I'm, just putting this out there, that, well, who's watching now? And so I want us to really think about that and really decide on what we ask for and then how we move forward. So the next time we receive a complaint, similar to this or any complaint from MNPD, what do we do about it? And what does that look like? And during this time where we have this active investigation, do we ask for an expansion of it? Director Fitcher.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that remember that the police department also has jurisdiction, right, of other police departments in our city. That involves the Park Police as well as Vanderbilt Police. We have MOU agreements with those police departments. And so when when you think about whistleblowers, they could come from other agencies as well. that may not be getting the assistance and the help that they need.
Member Wynn?
So the sexual misconduct proposal answers part of what I read in the dossier, the expose, whatever you want to call it, the 61. So that answers part of that. But I don't think there's anything unreasonable about after this group has finished their investigation for us then as sort of after action to recommend a whistleblower policy like the one you all have sent us to be adopted by the police department. I think it'd be justified. You know, in the history of the police department, from my memory, from the late 70s to now, and I'll defer to Member Holloway, he predates my time there. We've never had anything like this before. We've never seen anyone come from inside the agency with this kind of rank and this kind of responsibility make these kinds of accusations. It's never happened that I can remember. But you have to also consider that, you know, up until the time the COB was created, there was no other avenue for people to step outside and say, which I know the reason why the COB was justified to be created to begin with, to have another avenue. If you were too afraid to talk to the police, you can go to the COB. So I think that may have had some influence over this whistleblower who's reported whether the claim's right or wrong. I don't know. We don't know yet. But I don't think there's anything wrong with, and it would be justified, and after this is over with, to say, now let's talk about the future. And what do we do with people who are too afraid, not only from Metro, but from Lakewood and Belmead and Gillisful and all the other agencies that are inside Davidson County to be able to come to this board to file a complaint. I don't know whether that would change our mission statement, what it would do with our MOU with the department, but I think we should take a look at it as a future, next steps for higher standards.
Thank you, Member Wynn. Push the button.
I'm trying to formulate my question.
Take your time.
I just want some clarity. Your question was around expanding, like, what do we do while we have this case open?
Yes.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
I guess for me, my instinct is that the idea of expanding sounds necessary to me.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I need a little bit of clarity on, like, what exactly that looks like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That is a great question, and I think we would have to probably go into executive session if Director Fisher would be so inclined to give us a little bit more context because of the issue that we've had regarding retaliation and harassment and intimidation, and we have not remedied that yet. And so we're still talking about a whistleblower policy that our council is in support of and been working on. But I think, my question was a twofer, right? So do we expand it? Because we have received additional information that should be, in my opinion, considered while this investigation is going on. So let's just say 6 months from now, the investigation is over. We should already have a policy or something in place that addresses these things if we have someone submit a complaint like this again. But while we're in the midst of it, right, and really at the beginnings of it, then what does that look like to expand the investigation while we have investigators already in motion, right, to kind of look at this very large complaint that Member Wynn has even said that he's never seen before. So I know I hadn't ever seen a complaint of this magnitude coming from inside MNPD, but to have that, really, seconded by a member who was on the force for such a long time. Member Holloway, I know you have seen a lot. I'd like to know your opinion. I'd also like to know your opinion, Member Goddard, so my thing is carpe diem. We need to seize, do we seize the day? Do we seize this moment to cover as much ground as we possibly can as it pertains to issues of misconduct that are being brought to light by MNPD employees?
So can I add this to that? I mean, I think it's, if we don't, I think it's disrespectful to the complainants who have come forward. So basically what that looks like is we have a 61-page complaint that a special investigator has been paid, right? And has a contract to do. And that means that the other ones, the one that we also gave them, it just sits. And those things are not going to be investigated because they don't maybe cross or overlap with, they could be a whole bunch of other issues that are not raised in the 61 complaint. So in the 61 complaint could be talking about A, B, and C, but D and E and X, Y, Z over here doesn't get addressed. And so I think that that's what it looks like to expand, that the expansion of this complaint, the second complaint. So for instance, if the second complaint, which I think was about 14 pages, if that complaint contained information that is unrelated, but it's still issues, those things would not be addressed. And so you have X, Y, and Z and LMNOP over here that just sits, and, there's still, viable issues that need to be addressed, but they won't. And so that's what it looks like when you don't advocate for an expansion. And they were very clear about that. They can't do everything.
That's right.
Because they have a scope and they have a contract to do one thing. And I mean, I'm sure we're not the only cases that they have. But that's what that looks like when you ask that question. And so if there were other complaints that were raised after this and they don't have anything in it, they don't get addressed. They just are there. And we have to figure out what to do with them.
Yes, Attorney Eke.
I have a question. I just want to make sure. Did you say you were going to go into executive session? I wasn't sure what I heard right.
No, I said we may have to if we wanted to discuss any kind of personal issues or information that was pertaining to the investigation or the complaints that we've had, so we would not run into any issues of harassment, retaliation, and intimidation for the complainant. And so I did not say that we were going to do it, but if we were going to talk about it, that's when I said that we could go into.
Okay, because legally that will not be a basis to have an executive session.
Okay.
Executive session is for your attorney, not for the board to get together and discuss amongst themselves, but for your attorney to provide information to you with regards to pending litigation, threatened litigation, prospective litigation, and after your attorney does that, any discussion whatsoever has to be in a public meeting.
Okay.
So executive session is not used for boards to discuss amongst themselves.
Okay, well, I was looking at you as our attorney. And so, I don't know if litigation or any kind of pending would be, associated with this, but I do see you as our attorney as of right now.
That's correct. There is no legal basis for me to enter into executive session legally with this board at this time, legally under the Open Meetings Act.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we would be able to discuss that further, but we don't need to because we're not going to go into executive session. Member Goddard?
A few thoughts, just a little bit of history. First of all, we don't have any history from the prior oversight board because it didn't have jurisdiction over police complaints about police matters. It was just with respect to misconduct vis-a-vis civilians.
That's
So
right.
it's new ground here. Inextricably intertwined with this is the statutory obligation to provide complaints we receive to the OPA. Don't get exercised just yet. The big one that came in, the 61 pager, was filed with OPA originally. We just have a copy, so it's not
That's
an issue
correct.
under that. But as new ones come in, we have to figure out, and we may well need an executive session, how we handle that, whether we ignore that part of the statute, whether we redact and treat it as a confidential complaint that's been made and give that to OPA while trying to get the substance of it to the third-party investigator, that sort of thing. It gets complicated there. Ms. Eke is our lawyer, and her opinion is important as opposed to mine, but my understanding of the executive session and getting new facts and all is if there is for sure filed or threatened litigation or other readily foreseeable litigation, then Ms. Eke can become informed on all the facts as need be. We can have an executive session, not if you agree yet, Ms. Eke, but possibly go down the road of and have a session where she can advise us of the facts that are important to her opinion and provide legal opinions. And I 100% agree for us to have any discussion beyond follow-up questions to be sure we understand. Any discussion of what to do has to be in a full open meeting. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it is helpful. And so I do want to bring up the point that this is new ground, right? I think that's why we're talking about it. It's new ground. We are now the Community Review Board. And so not only are we navigating a new law and shaping what we will be, but the whole, complaint being made or complaints being made by sworn officers or, unsworn employees of MNPD, then I think that deserves and warrants a conversation separate from civilian complaints that we have always received. And so I think that's what makes the difference. And I think we can agree on that's the difference, right? That, that we're having and why we're having this discussion. Because if it was a civilian complaint, we would handle it exactly how we handle all of the civilian complaints. But what does that look like if we deem it a whistleblower complaint or it's coming from within the MNPD and it names MNPD officials, high-ranking, and then what does that look like as it pertains to the safety of employees, of government employees, especially since we don't have a whistleblower policy as it stands right now. Not right. And so I think it does warrant us to have a discussion about that.
I wouldn't disagree with that at all.
Yes. No, that was a good point.
Also, I want to say that, I think what I gleaned a little bit from with Butler Snow is that they're getting calls as well.
Yes, they are.
Right, so we don't, those complaints that go directly to them, because somebody, people know their number and their information, I believe that people have also reached out to them directly.
Yep. All right. Any other discussion? So we will be following up with this item. I do think we will have to make a decision pretty quickly regarding the expansion and how we go about asking for an expanded scope of this investigation process. And so we may have to have a special called meeting. But just be on the lookout for what that will potentially look like, in the next week or so. Okay. Any additional discussion? You good? Okay. The next is our MOU negotiations. Chair? Yes.
We've discussed this at some length already. Other than what's already been said, I don't have much to say. We have our meeting scheduled for August 6th. Part of that meeting will be, I've not discussed this with the other side, but I believe part of that meeting will be to set as soon as possible the first full meeting
Okay.
of the negotiating group and proceed apace from there. That's probably the shortest report you will ever hear from me.
I've never seen you speak that shortly and be that brief, ever. So,
Just don't get used to it.
I won't. So can you, give us a little insight on how you think the meeting will go? And are you hopeful that the issues that we brought up earlier pertaining to, the law, right?
Yeah.
And the records that we believe
Yeah.
that are, supported by the law and, the MOU negotiations, are you hopeful that we will make progress and that, in Metro Legal, hears us, even though, we haven't fully discussed that yet, and that'll be on August 6th. Can you give us a perspective of how you think that meeting will go?
On the August 6th meeting, I feel 100% confident that Metro Legal will be open to hearing our arguments. And I feel 100% confident that we're not going to have hidden agendas and second agendas and trying to figure out what they're really saying.
Okay.
And I think we will have very direct, not offensively direct, but very direct conversations and focus on what we can agree on and what we're disagreeing on and why, and try to run those to ground. I am optimistic that we will get from that a workable set of decisions that we can rapidly move to the MOU discussions and ideally implement some of those things before even getting much deep into the MOU.
Okay.
It's all the MOU, but the MOU full group discussions.
Okay, good.
Stated differently, I think we'll come out of there knowing what we've agreed to and what we haven't and exactly why we haven't agreed to anything we haven't agreed to.
Okay. That sounds good. I know we had already talked about this, and we've talked about this multiple times. I just want to make sure that we are clear on our strategy, how we're going in. We are going in to negotiate in good faith, taking a stance on what we've already talked about, and then hopefully coming out with some kind of agreement so we can obtain the records that we need so we can get this work done. And I think you will be able to articulate that well to Wally Deeds particularly, but I know Cindy Gross will be in that meeting with you, and then it'll be Frank and you, and that's it, right?
That is, yes, that is correct.
Okay.
And Frank and I are working closely on this. We will talk probably more than once between now and then. I know
Okay.
for sure we're going to talk to make sure our list of legal issues that we want to
Okay.
be sure we address in that meeting, we're on the same page and know what our arguments are.
Okay.
And part of that is responding to what comes back across the net or the fence or however metaphor you want to use. And I feel very confident that Frank and I are on the same page of that stuff.
Okay.
To work well.
Do you think that from this August 6th meeting that we will be able to come out with an actual date for the MNPD MOU negotiations? Because I think that is part of the angst that I'm feeling, people are feeling. We have this August 6th
Right.
meeting scheduled, but we don't have a date for an actual MOU negotiation with MNPD.
What I believe we should be able to come out with are a few dates in the near future where the 4 people in that room are holding open, and then each side goes and talks to the few others that they need to be in the meeting as well and see what date can work for everybody.
Okay.
Well, I think we should think about, at that point, everyone in the meeting, I am a little concerned about, it's just, there's no one else in the meeting, right, to work through this.
On August 6th,
Yeah,
Yeah,
on August
that's
the
right.
6th.
the legal issue meeting.
So are you saying that we probably need another person in the meeting? Would you like to be included in that meeting?
I think so. I think it would be good to bring some balance to that meeting.
Okay,
And then speak on behalf of issues that might come up that,
Okay.
that I can work through and how that affects us.
right.
As a board and a membership. And so yeah, if you guys would be open to my presence in that meeting, that would be fantastic.
At this point, I would not be. That has been discussed in the committee meeting and discussed with Metro Legal, and it's just for legal issues, and I firmly believe we would stand a better chance of reaching agreement with just the lawyers there. And something I haven't said earlier that's critically important is Frank and I can't agree to anything other than to say we've got to go back to Director
Correct.
Fisher, and we got to go back to the board.
Mm-hmm.
What we can agree to is if we think this is a good thing, that we will recommend that to the board and to Executive Director Fisher. But we're not there to agree on anything.
Okay. I would be inclined to say that we would need additional conversation. I think what I'm looking at is the diversity of the meeting and you know, having a particular set of voices at the table that will try or attempt to kind of frame a story that really can only be told by someone who is on the inside, working with records and a compliance monitor staff that are not getting what they need on a daily basis. And so I understand your perspective of this is just an attorney's meeting. But I think, you know, it's much more than that when it comes to understanding the gravity of it. And I cannot reconcile why we have not received an adequate response for MNPD not providing us with the records that we need. And we just received an email. When was that, Director Fisher? Was it today or what's today? Monday? Yeah, it was today. And what did it say?
The one from Wally,
Uh-huh.
it basically was like,
No, not that one. Not that one. The one from last week that stated we wouldn't be getting, information and documents, and that's best left up to the MOU negotiations, but it was pertaining to case files. And so kind of like the mixing of one issue with another.
Was that the email from Assistant Chief Hagar? a
No,
couple
it
weeks ago?
wasn't. It was from someone else.
it was from, are you talking about the one that we got from OPA?
It was from OPA,
From Command?
Starling.
Okay.
That is our most recent one. And so what I'm saying is that every day, maybe 2 or 3 times a day, we are getting correspondence from OPA, employees, officials. It could be Hagar, it could be, you know, whomever, and the story kind of morphs into whatever the issue of the day is. And so we are looking at this, and it's happening in real time. And so I don't want us to get to a point where you all are now in the meeting and you don't have a full story because Director Fisher, she's getting emails daily.
Okay. I hear what you're saying. If that gets better, if it gets a lot worse, the legal arguments are still exactly the same. The board can decide this, and I'm not going to take it personally if you change it. My very best advice as a lawyer and as a person who's been in those meetings and a person that's dealt with these people is that we stand a significantly better chance of getting further down the road, it being a lawyer-only meeting. And I think it will delay rather than accelerate things to change that. That's my honest personal opinion. I may be wrong. I've been wrong before. I hate to admit it, but I do when I am. But that's where I am.
So I think that's why we probably need to talk about this some more, so we can make sure that you're not wrong, Member Goddard, and really making sure that the meeting is balanced and it has diverse voices in the room. And I think diversity is always a good thing. But then also, if you don't tell your story, somebody else will. And so I think there has to be some context in that. We just need to figure out what that actually looks like because we've been waiting for a meeting for so long. It's been months, and now we're finally meeting with Metro Legal, and it's not with MNPD. So I think we need to flesh that out a little bit more.
I'm happy to discuss that.
Okay.
I'm not sure how we legally discuss that, but I'm
We'll
happy to
figure it
discuss
out.
that further. All right.
Okay.
I don't have-
Nikki will
please-
help
please
us
share
figure
that.
it out.
No, I'm not involved in these MOU negotiations.
That's right. Nikki can't give us any kind of legal advice regarding the
You
MOU.
have Mr. Brazil, who is involved in these MOU matters as the outside counsel. So I'm not involved.
I was actually talking about how we could conduct a meeting to discuss this. It wasn't about, we know you're not involved in the MOU at all.
How you can have a board meeting?
No, not a board meeting, but how could we discuss some of these issues prior to the August 6th meeting?
You have to have a publicly noticed meeting with an agenda, and you need at least 5 days' notice. I mean, so you have to have a publicly noticed meeting where this
Just
board
like
on a
regular-
quorum can conduct business.
And so what about the special called meeting?
Yeah, you
It's the
need
same.
5 days minimum for a specially called meeting per the state law. So you will have to have an agenda, and then the requisite notice has to be provided, and the agenda has to be published, and you have to have a quorum to conduct business. So you have to have 4 board members present.
Okay. Member Witzel?
So we were already talking about the possibility of having a special call meeting to talk about the expansion.
That's
Was that what
right.
it's for? Okay, cool. And so potentially that could be the MOU meeting discussion could be a part of that special call meeting. So that would means that has to happen before the 6th. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Well, my next bit of news may be good news to you.
You got some good news?
I'm out on vacation for a couple of weeks, first part of August. I will be attending this meeting by Zoom as is on my anniversary, just so you know my level of
Oh, that's
dedication here.
horrible. Okay.
So in terms of discussion and whether we have to have a meeting or whether we could have an MOU committee meeting, which is, when others can attend, I don't know. I do not know, and Ms. Ecke, I'm not trying to say different to you, I just don't know whether if all we're doing is deciding who goes to a negotiation, whether that is deliberating towards business.
Well, I think, I know we've talked about a lot of, what will be said in the meeting and your approach. But I do think that, the voices in the room, they matter. But then also, is there a strategy attached in some kind of way on how you will approach these things? Or do you just believe that you're going to go in there and everybody will be agreeable?
I don't believe everybody's going to be agreeable. I've never been that optimistic. First of all, there's a voice that's not here that clearly needs to weigh in, and that is Frank Brazil, who's going to be basically leading these
That's right.
discussions. And as far as a strategy, Frank and I are on the same page of what the legal issues are and the practical arguments and what the problems are and how these solve those problems. And if that's a strategy, knowing your legal arguments and going and making them and see what the pushback is and responding, that's the strategy. We don't have a broad political strategy other than achieving the goals we've described this evening.
Okay. Well, that you made a good point. We'll follow up with Frank. And
Please, absolutely.
yeah, we'll follow up with Frank. And so, Director Fisher, could you get us a meeting scheduled with Mr. Brazil for tomorrow, if at all possible?
Is this a board meeting? Are you talking about meeting with more than one board member with Attorney Brazil? Because you will need a public meeting.
No, we do know that much.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear, because
Yep. Thank you, Nikki.
so there's no ambiguity, because I wasn't quite sure the kind of meeting you were talking about. Is it you and Mr. Frank Brazil?
Yes.
Okay,
Is that allowable?
yes, if it's one board member, yes,
Thank you.
it is.
Okay, thank you.
So we got to follow the rule, but the legislature doesn't have to follow the rule.
Well, I mean, I wasn't going to say that.
The legislature specifically exempts itself from both the Public Meetings Act and the Open Records Act. So that is exactly right. It's exactly wrong, but you're exactly right.
And we have to follow the rules and other parties don't. So that's exactly right, Member Holloway.
Are they in agreement about having a Zoom meeting?
For me, yes. It may be all Zoom, I'm not sure. It was going to be all in person, but they're Zooming for me, yes.
Okay. Nikki, Attorney Eke, are there any rules pertaining to Zoom meetings and?
The board cannot meet by Zoom, but one board member can meet with Mr. Brazil or with Metro Legal via Zoom. It's just one board member.
Okay.
But if it exceeds one, you have to have a public meeting, and it has to be an in-person meeting,
Okay.
not
Even-
by Zoom.
Even with Metro Legal, that's right?
Yeah, if there's more than one board member present.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Is anybody, do you have any more comments or questions regarding the MOU? Do we have the latest draft of the MOU?
I'm sorry, yes, the latest draft's been the last draft that was sent to all board members.
Okay. Do you know the date that was on that MOU?
It'll take me a minute. I could find it if you want to go on to other business,
Okay.
and I'll interrupt when I figure it out.
Okay, and if you would you just resend it, just so we can have it at the top of our email? Director Fisher, could you do that? So we can have the most recent one that was sent to the legal department? Uh-huh. Yeah, because I have like 3 copies in my files.
Well, you're way behind. I got about 8.
Oh, okay.
The last one that you sent in that email with all the language, that's the latest one, right?
It would be the one that we copied you, was sent to Mr. Deeds, I think. Let me find it.
Yeah, you sent me one that had like 6, didn't have 6 things in it, like it had, I have an email from you, so that's the latest.
I'm confident.
That's the one that I've been using as the latest draft.
Okay.
All right.
That you were going to share with Wally.
That's it.
Yeah.
That'll be great. So if we can resend that, so everybody can have the latest version of the MOU. And so when we're able to, when we come back and we discuss anything, that we'll all be on the same page.
And let me also one note on that. For almost all the sections, it has a reference and a key in the
That is
back
right.
of where that language came from. So it was clear, we just weren't making this stuff out of thin air, and had some of it was the last MOU, some of it was a statute, whatever else, but it's the draft that has all that in it.
That's right. Okay. Thank you. Next is new business and announcements. Do we have any new business and announcements?
This is new business.
Turn your microphone.
Mr. Witzel and I met for the bylaws,
Okay.
and it was just he and I, so was it really a meeting? Well, I guess if it was
It
task force,
was.
it was, because she said that, there's no
Yeah.
quorum for that, so.
That's correct.
He had some new proposals that
Okay.
we came up with, or some changes, or we wanted to discuss. So I think that we need to make certain that if you could come to that meeting, for the executive committee meeting for next month, so we can get that discussed and get it on the agenda, and so we can adopt those bylaws.
Okay.
That's the only new business. And then we are, of course, NACO is having their annual conference in October. It is the same time that it is TSU's homecoming. So it's like,
Oh, my.
some of y'all gonna have a little problem with that, right?
I don't know about that.
Especially since they're playing Howard this year.
Remember when?
So this is new business, and it's bear with me, it will take about a minute. It's a suggested reading assignment for the board.
Okay.
In his letters from the Birmingham jail,
Yes.
as many have read, Dr. King said that justice delayed is justice denied. And I want to thank the mayor and the chief for acknowledging that we need to open up the unsolved bombings in the 1960s, the civil rights bombings, So they've turned it over to their cold case unit. This is a big, big deal.
Yes, it is.
And I want to thank them for doing this because from my own personal experience, in the mid-'80s, for about 2.5 years, I worked in the intelligence division here at Metro. And my assignment was to investigate the Klan and subversive groups, and I spent a lot of time doing that. We knew about the Hattie Cotton School bombing. We knew about Z. Libby Alexander's home bombed across from Meharry. We knew some of the details about the Jewish Community Center bombing, but not a lot. So there was no context to these new cops who are now investigating continued hate crimes and violence against African Americans and Jews in Nashville. So I would like to invite all of you to get a copy of this new book. This is Betsy Phillips' Dynamite Nashville, and read it before the next board meeting.
Okay.
For this reason, I think we should, as a board, recommend to the police department that this be mandatory reading for every police recruit at Metro Police Academy. Because if I'd had this kind of context of what's been divulged in this book, my whole attitude and view about the work I was doing in the intelligence division in the 80s would have been different. But it wasn't. So it was like we were destined to repeat history because we just didn't know it. We forgot it. So I just think, as a board, and it'll be up to you all to decide that, and I know this may seem trivial to the police department for us to recommend reading, but I think there's something deeper here. I think that educating these new officers about the history of their city and the struggle of the civil rights movement would be a big deal coming from us.
I
Thank
think
you.
so too. I like that recommendation, and I haven't received my book yet. And so I think that is a good suggestion that we read that. I think last week when that came out, it really triggered some emotions for those of us who are native Nashvillians, or we are well informed of the civil rights movement and different issues that affect Nashville particularly. Right, and with Reverend James Lawson recently passing, and we just had a memorial for him and Congressman John Lewis, I think all of this is timely and it's not by accident. Even the work that we're doing and the struggle that we have had over the last year is related, in my opinion. And so taking a fresh look at this and really taking it seriously will be to our benefit. And not just for the board, but for all Nashvillians, and especially the Metro Nashville Police Department. Member Witzel.
Part of the reason why my voice is going out is because I had a super busy weekend. And this is not new business, by the way, but I'm going to put it here, but it's not business. But and so today I've been extremely tired. And as I was leaving my house to come to this meeting, I thought, I don't feel like going to this meeting. And that's human, right? Because sometimes we don't feel like going to work or whatever it is that we have to do. Or
Right.
But as I was preparing to leave my house, I got a text from a friend who was pretty distraught over the incident with Sonia Massey that happened in Springfield, Illinois, a 36-year-old black woman who was killed by the police in her own home. And she told me I shouldn't have watched that video. And so before I left, I struggled with whether or not I should watch the video, but I decided to watch it before I came. And it's heartbreaking. But I just wanted to lift up her name and send condolences to her family and support to that city, those activists there and those people who are calling for justice. And it just reminded me of how important the work that we're doing is and how important. I mean, that was body cam footage that was shown, and just the irony of that footage being shown, and then our struggle to get body cam footage.
That's right.
So, I just didn't want to let this meeting end without lifting up her name and just continuing to remind this board and the staff of the importance of the work we do. So thank you all for what you all do, and let's keep working.
Thank you, Member Witzel. That was very thoughtful. And we will continue to lift up the names of people who have suffered, due to police misconduct and police brutality, and understand that the work continues. Okay. All right. If there is nothing else, or
I just want to say that
Okay.
I'm going to take some time off soon.
you have to get that out.
I had to get that out, so I don't know when, but it'll be sometime in August and in September. I think accumulated about 800 hours of sick and vacation time.
Okay.
So I need to take a little time off.
You do.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to make certain that we, scheduling for the MOU and all that stuff is good, but I am tired. I need a little break. That's to get my voice together at least, so I can come back and sing or something, right? But I just wanted to let you know, so I'll keep you posted if that's the case, so that everyone
Okay.
knows, and then make certain that Katura and Dr. Risby will help in that regard if you need something.
Okay, that sounds
Okay.
good.
All right.
Mr. Holloway, did you have anything?
Yeah, I just want to go reflect back to a book he was talking about for officer to read would be good, and it would be, but it kind of remind me of what they was teaching us at the training academy about how we should respond to citizen, where one of the staff members that does counseling to kind of go over things, how we should respond to people, and it worked for a couple of years, but people complained so bad about it. I said, hey, I ain't racist,
Of
but
course.
90% of your ticket was folks of color.
Mm-hmm.
To tell you something. But it even go back further than that. When you take books out of the library, you keep cheering for reading the history, things that took place in America, that took place here in Nashville, Tennessee, so there are a lot of changes need to be made, and if a child wants to read that book, he should be allowed to read that book, and not try to hide. Because when you try to hide something, they're eager to find out more about it.
That's right.
I was in high school, and they didn't want us to have a prom because they didn't want the black kids and the white kids mixing, but they did anyway.
Oh, prom.
And so we had a banquet, and but that was the reason I found out later, the reason that they didn't want us mixing, but they was curious about us. And I played football, hey.
You were a star.
I went to start, but hey, look here, I had one of the pretty cheerleaders on this. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I do think, a lot of what we talk about and a lot of our work is interconnected with very relevant, timely issues that we are facing today. Right. So we want to think, even though we know policing and kind of the history and the tension of policing with our community dates back a long time. But even the things that we're talking about right now are very relevant and timely. And we have to figure out how to move forward. Right. In the face of a lot of this same tension, but it may look differently. So I do want to thank you all for being a part of this board and sticking with the commitment that in 2018 that the Nashville community charged us with. Remember when?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to say this.
Go ahead.
And this kind of goes in the same vein of officers understanding the history of this city. In the 1850s in Nashville, the Nashville Police Department was responsible for arresting people who were educating black children.
Yes,
There were underground schools all over the city,
that's right.
run by churches and just people who just wanted to teach black kids how to read and learn American white history. Now today, our politicians want to take away the right of teachers to teach white children black history. So how far have we come?
That's right.
That's the history, I think, that every police officer needs to understand, that they were used to keep people ignorant and enslaved
That's right.
by law, by law. Now, here we are again, all these years later, and we're revisiting this all over again. So I think these are really important moments
I think so
to
too.
educate the officers about critical race theory, where everybody's so afraid of it. It's,
Right.
it's the most unbelievable thing I've ever heard. Why would you be afraid of black history if you're a white person, unless you just wanted not to be reminded
Right.
of black history as a white
right.
person? So educating our police, I think, is especially important, because whenever a white officer interacts with a black citizen, they need to understand that community trauma,
That's right.
because it's in that frame that they see that white officer. So I think, educating officers about this is extremely important, and I think this board plays a big part in that.
I think so too. Thank you, Member Nguyen. And we all know that racism needs legality. And so we are facing that not only locally, but in the state and federally. So I think we have a lot of work to do. And so I think we are all prepared to roll up our sleeves, even though Director Fisher is going to take some time off. If we can stay committed, I would, to find solutions and work on solutions together. I think that Nashville will be proud. I think we'll be proud. So with that being said, any other new business announcements? Can I get a motion to adjourn? All right. All in favor? This meeting has been adjourned. Did you say?
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.